10 a.m. Meeting of the BOCC. We got budget stuff going this morning. Was Kathy going to be here with you on, or are you just presenting? Yeah. I don't see her on. Bailey's giving her a call. Okay. Sam. Yeah, when I first started here's better. Okay. First one I see on my list is the coroners.
Yes.
Okay.
So we get started, and in your budget, in your workbooks, you have a printout. The first tab is the corners, and it's a printout of their budget boss, the system we use for budget.
Okay.
Sorry, I didn't introduce myself. Kathy Funk Baxter, Finance Director. We'll get started with the coroner first. Thanks.
Assuming this 24-25, these numbers put into account the approval we gave on the people the last meeting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
And you had talked about others. Are those built into that too?
no.
Okay.
So your first sheet is like a summary of, it has 24-25 budget request. It's the grand total of all expenses. And then it has 23's budget, 23's expense so far. Oh, no, it doesn't. I'm sorry. It has 23 budget. It has 22 budget. It has a completed year for 22's expenditures. It has 21's budget. And it has 21's completed expenses for that calendar year. And then it also notates the number of FTEs that were authorized. And so you'll note that for 23, the authorized FTEs went up, and that's due to a recent approval for two positions.
Okay, yeah.
I didn't put the FTEs for 25 and 24 because we'll be discussing personnel in a different workshop.
Okay.
When you say authorized FTEs, should we infer anything from what that means?
It means authorized, they may have been filled, they may have been vacant. It's the grand total of every position that was authorized in the budget.
Okay, so it doesn't necessarily imply there were 4 FTEs collecting. All right, thank you.
And then the next sheets are the actual submissions of what the department submitted for their budget request. And the first one is their revenues. So basically, very similar. Their revenues are very similar to what they've had in the past. Other than, I think Dana can speak to the fact that she's added space rental as a new item.
So we're anticipating more of the counties in Washington to be utilizing our facility. Christy was gone at a conference last week that's mandatory. And she stated that there was multiple counties there that were talking to her about how they'll be using our facility. And it was probably a good 6 to 8 of them. So with that, a lot of them used, I think there was like 18 that were using Snohomish County, and Snohomish County is no longer going to be providing that service because Dr. Lacey took the full-time ME position in King County when Dr. Harif retired. So they're not able to perform those. So they have to outsource it someplace else. And our facility will be that one, with the other pathologists being able to come and do other counties' autopsies in our facility. They'll most likely be bringing them to us. So I see that happening more and more. So that's just kind of a rough estimate on what it was before as to what we may anticipate.
Cool.
And of course, the autopsy cost reimbursement fluctuates with the number of autopsies that the state reimburses the county for.
So on this, I'm looking at the cost reimbursement. I see that we've collected 11,000 since in 2023 through June, and we had approved 80,000. Is there another column in there that says 2023 anticipated?
No, there's not. But of course, the June was before they caught up on, I believe, before they caught up on their invoicing.
Yeah, so when I came in, we had to do the backtrack on the last 6 months of last year because it wasn't submitted. So I had to go back and do the last 6 months of last year. And so that, along with the first 6 months of this year, I was doing both of them at the same time. And I had to do a little bit more legwork to find the other stuff. So that's why that took so long. So that was submitted with the first 6 months of this year submission. And then the next 6 months will probably be about the same amount, if not a little bit more reimbursement than the first 6 months of this year.
So in the column 2023 approved revenues, that includes the 6 months from 2022?
When we, yes, when we did the budget amendment, I added in an amount for collecting those 22 items. Because if you'll notice, 22 actuals were way lower than they probably should have been.
Right, but then in 2023 collected through June, I would have expected to see that include whatever is in the 80,000.
Right, but it hadn't gotten invoiced and paid yet. So that's why there's a delay in the timing of when the revenue's coming in.
Okay, so there would be a 2023 anticipated.
Yes,
Okay,
that might be one of the enhancements that I asked for for Budget
Right.
Boss.
So you can only bill those. It's not like a monthly billing, right?
No,
Yeah.
it's every 6 months.
It's every 6 months. So the end of
Yeah, I have to,
December, you're probably expecting a bigger check.
February 15th is when I have to have the last 6 months in. And then I'm not exactly sure how long it takes them because I don't ever see the check. It just comes directly to the auditor's office. So I submitted, and I think it's probably within a few weeks or so
Yeah.
that they submit that to us. But it's the first 6 months is January 1st through the end of June. And then I have until I think August 15th or 17th to submit for the first 6 months. And then from the 1st of July through the end of December, then everybody has to have their stuff in by February 15th, I believe.
Makes it a little odd because revenues aren't counted in the year they're earned.
yeah,
But the check might be here by now.
but I think I sort
should
of
be.
understand that.
Yeah.
What makes it awkward is if you look at 21, 22, 23, you see that
Mhm.
and you say, I don't think the number of autopsies has been quite that strong a fluctuation. There's been a kick up, but there hasn't been this oscillation.
Right.
So that's why the numbers look a little droll the way they are
Yeah.
laid out.
And actually, 24 and 25 might be a little bit overstated. So we'll go back and look at those. Because the 2023, what we're forecasting includes that one half of the year that hadn't been billed for 22. So it's actually, it includes like
Okay.
3 billings.
And the next line down, what is a coroner fee? You're not going to charge me to die, are you?
No. Actually, I am not sure what that was. That was in there. And I honestly can't tell you what that is.
Okay.
And because I would think, I know what the rental space and the other fees for the other counties for utilizing it. But then again, like we had discussed before, with the other counties, that also came out of our autopsy amount that was anticipated, and it's no longer that way. So those counties will be charged separately from the pathologist, or they will be utilized. We'll have Dr. Burt for them, or if Dr. Nelson does it, then he will be charging them separately instead of it coming out of how it was set up in the past. So.
And and then I think you've explained this, maybe you could do it again. The like in the case of Wakaikam, it's going to take a jump up between 23 and 24.
Yeah, so we were just kind of trying to estimate where they're at. Now, I think they usually only anticipate maybe a couple autopsies a year. the way it has been going, Pacific County is usually only maybe 4 or 5. And they're, I don't even know what they're at now. We just did another 2 for them, but they seem to be coming in constantly. So I think I was just trying to look at how many they've had in the past and then add a few on to that with the way things have been going.
Yeah.
It seems a little aggressive. And typically you want to be aggressive on the expenditures. That is to say, you think it's going to cost you more. You still try to do the best, but and on the revenue, you try not to assume more. You still do the best you can. And this fits this is really what you think will happen in 24?
So I'm not sure what that amount was, the 80.
So for the autopsy cost reimbursement, are we still talking about the line?
He's talking about the
For-
revenue.
I'm talking about the Waukegan Pacific in Yakima.
He's talking
Oh,
about going
okay.
from this to this.
So. Okay, so 2022. From $100, they're paying us $100 to 22. Okay. So like I said, in the past, it's been absorbed into the Cowlitz County coroner costs. So I think that they were only paying maybe $100 for utilizing the facility. Right now I have it set at $350 for each time.
How much more?
$350
Mhm.
for the facility fee. So, and that goes, I took that from what a couple of the other counties, mainly Thurston County.
Yeah.
They're pretty much the only other county other than medical examiner counties that has others utilize their facility. So I based it off of kind of what he charges. So that's probably the amount, $350 per autopsy up to about that. So that would be
And it
what-
used to be 100.
that's what it had showed in there. So that's what I'm assuming it was.
How are Waukegan and Pacific accepting of that?
They're fine.
Okay.
And ours.
Where
is
else they gonna
matches.
go?
I beg your pardon?
Where else they gonna go?
Oh, yeah, I know, but typically we're
Yeah,
gentlemen.
I get you. You
Yeah,
don't want to gouge
peace.
people, but
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Where else can they go?
Well, and I wasn't just, throwing out numbers. I looked at other areas and stuff like
Appreciate
that.
that. Thank you.
And so that's what I was basing it off of. So yeah.
And the last line, the rental space, that's for some outside the county saying, I need to put a body in here for a month or
No, that's for autopsies.
that's
So
for
any,
offices.
yeah, so that would be any of the other, say 38 counties, except for minus the ME counties, utilizing our facility for an autopsy that they need. So like I said, with say Dr. Burke coming in and doing outside counties autopsies, that would be utilizing our facility for that. It's a $350 for the utilization of our morgue.
Oh, and that's not included in the coroner fee we just discussed?
And that probably should be removed because I don't know what that is. I don't charge
Which one should be removed?
the coroner fee. I'm not, that's something that's been in there and I don't actually know what the coroner fee is for. So
Under the long-term, space rent, long-term, so I'm totally confused now. Maybe my colleagues can help.
That's way I hear it. That's for counties that we don't contract with. We contract with the Cowlitz Pacific, so you have separate line items with them.
yeah, so in the past,
And-
it has been with it's just been, I don't think we actually have a contract with them, but we've always taken in their autopsies and done their autopsies here. And so they've really never, I don't think that they were ever really charged a fee for it, and it just got absorbed into our 48 autopsies per year for Cowlitz County. And then they were getting the $1,800 or
Yeah.
whatever that was being charged for Cliff to
Yeah.
do the autopsies.
So because we have a relationship with them, you keep it as separate line items. This bottom one is for other counties that say we need a space to do this. And
Yeah.
it sounds like Thurston is the other, Thurston has space and we have
Thurston,
space. Not a
Thurston
lot
is
of
the
people.
only other one around here other than medical examiner offices, which a lot of them are not doing that many of them. Snohomish County was really the only one that was bringing in other surrounding counties and assisting them in their autopsies, and they won't be doing that
They
anymore.
won't be doing that anymore. So I actually think that's probably a pretty reasonable number. Wouldn't be surprised to see a little higher.
Yeah, we're just
This-
in the process of getting that out there to them, saying, hey, you can utilize our facility. And we've had Lewis County and Walla Walla, Pacific, Wahkiakum, and I think there was one other that has utilized us already. But there's more from the conference of what Chrissy was saying. There's a lot more that have used Snohomish County and won't be able to do that anymore. So they'll have to be bringing them to us
Well,
or to Thurston County, but Thurston County is kind of maxed out too. So
considering the revenue from 21 was about $31,000, you have plans to triple that revenue coming in based on our new facility. That's absolutely the way we should be headed. So thank you on that. Although the fact of the matter is the revenues you bring in barely scratch the surface for your overall budget. It's heavily dependent on the general fund. So, but I appreciate that trend to help take advantage of facilities. Hopefully those are conservative numbers and the building will be more fully utilized.
we're hoping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the
So,
expenditures, I notice the salaries are about 600,000 or so this year. And, again, you're planning to go up to about 622, kind of a gradual increase as is expected as, benefits and contracts go up. So
All of our budgets currently do not have any COLAs built in.
Mm.
They only have the step increases built in.
Yeah.
So that's subject to change.
Sure. Yeah.
And then it also is before those positions were approved. So it's going to be revised one more time to add the 2 positions you recently approved.
if I could go back to the revenue page, I'm still having difficulty understanding that. If at some point I'm too much of an obstacle, we can go offline on that. I think I understand the term approved revenue versus versus collected through June. If the approved revenue exceeds the collected, but in the last line item, it's 100 was approved, but we're collecting so far 1,050. There's an implication in the terms that I just simply don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know what was the basis for the 23 budget. I mean, $100 is pretty low budget.
Okay, so as opposed to approved, I would say that would be budgeted.
Yes. When you look at 2023, that's actually our approved budget revenues.
Okay, so that's,
It's missing the word
Budget.
budget.
yeah, okay. Because we changed things all along, but this is the latest variant of,
Right, and it
23.
picks up, when it picks up the numbers, it picks up any revisions up to the date that we printed these. And so it picked up budget amendments because I had entered those in July.
Okay, and then coming back to what the coroner said, there was one line item you had thought you might take away, and
I'm not sure what the corner fee is. I don't know if that's, the $100 is what was charged to
Yeah, I think
Wahkiakum
it-
County and Pacific County for the utilization of our facility.
oh, you're going back to the line item number 2 under? Oh, okay, peace.
Is that what you were asking?
No, but
Oh, okay,
that's fine. I think you had talked about that and we had moved on.
okay.
Okay,
Good. Thank you.
So I'll point out that as far as the supplies, the total budget for 24 and 25 is consistent with 23's approved budget. Notice, Commissioner Morrison, on the expenditures, it does say 23 approved budget.
Thank you.
Like, I don't know why, but it does. And so those supplies expenses are in line with previously approved budget.
So I am wondering though, back on the revenue, if the computer hasn't assumed we'll get the same increase budget that we're collecting this year, not recognizing that there's a bunch of that should be the previous year.
Right, that's
So
what,
that may bias the out years for 24 and 25.
yeah.
I would anticipate
think-
that would
I
probably
think
get
we gotta go-
adjusted.
I think we probably need to go back and look at 24 and 25 and revise it a little bit down.
I didn't even notice that until you pointed out we need to go back and look at it again. I go, oh, that's right. They'll automatically multiply from the previous year instead of the average.
And then for other services, the grand total is 332,000 and 334,000 for 24 and 25. And that's in line with the 23 approved budget of 331. It's a bit higher than 2021 and 22's actual. But I think the coroners explained that we have had an increase in the number of autopsies.
I think that's a trend going up, not just here, but
It's
across the,
it's everywhere.
yeah, we're seeing fentanyl and different things causing issues.
I talked to the coroner in Mason County, and because I wanted to see some of their how many autopsies and stuff that they had done. She told me, and they're a lot smaller than Cowlitz County. She said last year they did 99 autopsies. So some of them have a different criteria of what they do. Some of them do every single motor vehicle accident, every single, gun related one, stuff like that. We try and kind of keep on the same basis, but it also depends on the scene and all of that stuff to whether we decide we need to do it. If it's more suspicious or not, then we will. If not, then we won't. So we try and look at those pretty closely and not just do something that we don't think we need to.
If I recall correctly, you have a lot of you've had some staff turnover, so you have new employees. So training's going to be pretty critical. And I noticed there's not much of an increase in your training tuition and those kinds of things. And
Yeah.
it would seem to me to be reasonable to make sure that
Yeah,
get all
so with the
qualified?
training, I didn't really, I kind of looked at that as sending them away to training
Mhm.
as to doing training in the office. Cause I do most of that and I go out with them for the training there. A lot of the training that we send them out to will get reimbursed to the county. So, I didn't really put that in there as to the county having to pay the funds for that.
Hmm.
Does that make sense?
Except if those monies come in, it has to be budgeted, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. if
She-
that does happen.
she cur-
So that's good news. I mean, I'm glad
Yeah.
there's,
So sometimes,
plan.
like if it's a Washington Association conference, then sometimes the people will pay for the hotel and stuff out of their pocket.
Mhm.
And then the association will reimburse them for that. So it's actually not coming out of the county funds at all, unless I was to use our county P card or something to pay for that, and then it should be reimbursed directly back to the county. So,
She does have tuition and registration line,
right, yeah.
and she has a budget, $2,000.
It's,
so for that, it's every year we have a tuition kind of annual fee for the International Association being a part of that. And it's like the corner's like $100 and each employee after that is 50. So I think I had anticipated that with the amount that we had, but we've also lost a few of the casual help ones. So,
okay.
and we're going kind of down from the amount of casual help that we had to just a few casual help and more of the full timers.
So, what kind of checks and balances do you have for those who are getting reimbursed by the association, not billing the county for travel? That,
So I would be the one that if the county paid for it, I would be the one taking care of that. And then how it happens is you fill out the form for the association, and whoever is supposed to be reimbursed for it, you're in charge of putting that at the top. So if I paid for it out of my pocket, then it would be reimbursed to me and I would put my name at the top of it. But if the county, if I'm paying, say for the hotel rooms and such for 3 other employees that are going to the conference, and I put it, say on the county card, it's supposed to go back to the county. So it would be Cowlitz County Auditor's Office is where it would be reimbursed to. And then the secretary who's cutting the checks would cut that check out to the county itself, and then it would be submitted in. If the employees, if I said, well, you know, you pay for it out of your pocket and then you get reimbursed, that doesn't have anything to do with us. So they would just pay for it on their card or whatever, and then they would put at the top that, you know, so-and-so is getting reimbursed for this, and that check would be cut to them. So, does that make sense?
You have in your field, and I'm assuming this is true, but I asked, continuing education requirements. I had a mortgage license. I had.
Yes,
continuing education.
so the state requires everybody now in legislation, it's required everybody in the coroner's office to be certified. So full-timers have a year to be certified, and then part-timers, casual help are 18 months. So when they do that, I think the fee is still like $400 to register them, and then the cost to have it set up like at LCC or something for them to test. So the county would be, you know, would have to pay for that. But yes, there has to be, they have to become certified, and then that certificate is good for 5 years. And then at that time, after 5 years, you have to have, I think it's still like 50 continuing ed credits. So therefore you do have to attend some.
So a lot of these
conferences and
trainings
stuff.
are probably keep you in
Yes,
compliance.
yes, exactly.
The other question I had, and this is probably for Kathy, and I'm just looking at the IT charges. At one point in time, we were looking at how we allocated those IT services out. Is that factored into here or do you?
Yeah.
Or,
Yes, this is the current methodology that we
Okay.
have for IT. It's 50% is FTEs and 50% is devices.
okay, because I know we
So
were
I
looking
believe for the
at changing that a little bit, but
Yeah. I believe for the coroner's office, pretty much their FTEs budgeted is probably less than their number of computers that they have, because all your extra help has access to computers.
So we have, yes and no. They all do, but they all kind of utilize like one or two computers at one time. For the other FTE, I did request another computer for a station for them because each FTE should have their own station, and then all the other ones will utilize one. So all of them are utilizing the computers that we do have. I'm just getting one more for the new one that we were granted.
So you have more than 4 computers.
1, 2, 3, 4, and then the chief deputy's office and my office. And then the pathologist's office has one too. And then there is a computer in the evidence room also.
So 50% of their allocations based upon about, I think, if I counted right, 8 computers, and 50% is based upon 4 FTEs.
So, excuse me. I'm looking at the bottom line and a question always comes to mind is, I'm not sure what the proper form of asking this is, if you had to put error bars around that number, what would it be?
Which column?
The 24 and 25. The bottom line, last item, I mean, it's the 982, 155 and the 1,001,445.
Well, based upon history, they have pretty much always spent exactly what their budget is. So for 21, their budget was 817 and they spent 80. I know my numbers are little, 805. And then for 22, their budget was 998,000, and they spent 994,000. So they've been within a very small percentage of spending what they actually were budgeted.
Yeah, so you feel you have confidence in this number?
I have confidence in the numbers.
And so then let me ask you, you did say that there was no cost escalation?
There is no COLA built into the direct labor numbers.
Okay,
There's only step increases have been built in.
so we're exposed to the COLA
Yes,
and so that would,
Pending negotiations.
yeah, pending negotiations.
so it's a union shop also?
I don't have her labor sheets, but she has 4 FTEs currently. I think 2 of them are union and 2 are
No.
not.
No union.
No union?
No union.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they're waiting
doesn't-
for the exempt or, whatever.
It doesn't matter, except we won't be bound by something. We can
Right.
respond to
Mhm.
the forces at the moment. So I would look at that as probably as much as a 3% to 5%.
It's whatever.
Well, it's 2 years worth and you know the way
Yeah.
inflation is. And so I would think that's that's a lower line. On the COVID supplies, where is that?
I think we removed.
There's a COVID supply number here, COVID. Where did it go? Oh,
It's on the first page of expenses.
Yeah,
Towards the bottom.
last line on that first page. You don't show any, yet there is constant talk about COVID being here forever. Could you just make a comment about that?
I don't really see that we need extra supplies for that. I don't see that we really need extra supplies for that. We still have quite a bit, I think, that was obtained during COVID. But I mean, the other places that I worked during COVID too. We didn't get extra supplies. We just utilized what we had and we did just fine.
Yeah,
So-
totally. I appreciate that answer. I like that answer, actually.
If anything, we were not able to get certain things, but then that's when, you know, the state had come in and provided it. So it wasn't extra cost to us. So.
You're pretty well protected regardless. When you're doing an autopsy, you don't assume it's a clean and yeah. You protect yourself is really what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, we have PPE and stuff and, you know, they're decedents, they're not breathing on us, they're not coughing on us, they're, you know, not doing any of that type of stuff. So, as far as I'm concerned, as long as we're using the PPE that we have, we should be just fine. I don't see it really any different than doing an autopsy on somebody else.
So the money that you get that you got for COVID supplies is probably listed in that top line, the autopsy reimbursements. Because that would be part of the reimbursements, or I would think.
For COVID supplies, I wouldn't think so. I don't know how they did the whole COVID supplies here. I think they came back and asked for a budget amendment on supplies or something, or it was
some of that
granted, or
for-
I honestly don't know how that worked. I just know that there was a lot of money in here at one time for COVID supplies. So, and that would be the PPE and all of that stuff. So, but again, I know that the state was giving out supplies because they stockpiled it because it was only going to, excuse me, the first responders. So then the contractors or the suppliers didn't have as much. So the state was buying it and then divvying it out where it needed to go. So I honestly don't know where that was, but I know that we do have some supplies, and during COVID, I did what we normally did.
Yeah, I think the county received at least $1 million worth of PPE, whatever $1 million means, of something that's not a market-free thing. And I assume a lot of that would have ended up with the coroner and the police.
Yeah, I would think that I don't know if a lot, because I wasn't here during that time. I know that in the other areas that I was at, I mean, again, we utilized what we had and what we usually did before. The only time I went to the health department to obtain some stuff is when I wasn't able to order gloves, or I wasn't able to get something because the suppliers were out. And that's when we would go and obtain what we needed. So I'm not anticipating an extra cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh. It's difficult picking up somebody else's budget that you weren't part of and then trying to form one, but some of the comments you made and the changes you made, I think make sense and appreciate it.
If I had a overall comment, as I'm always entertained by, for example, the IT fund charges are listed as, say, for 24, $55,029. I would have been inclined to call it either 55 or 56 and
Yeah.
call it, you kind of know what I'm saying, the significance of the digits.
Well, if that was on our part,
No.
oh, it was, okay,
It was what budget entered.
okay.
It's
A percentage of the.
it's a
budget for the
thing,
year.
it's a thing to ignore, Arn.
Any other questions? Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'm next on your agenda.
You're next?
I'm
Okay.
next.
I see you brought help.
I brought help. I actually, our budget analyst started today. So, Tanya Richardson, so,
So that was her sitting back there
yes. Mhm.
and she
So-
left.
And
So
she,
should we be worried? He said, if this is what I'm in for.
I didn't have a chance. I ran out of time. I would have done a little analysis for the different years on mine, but I didn't. I tried to do it for all the other ones. But I did start something that I noticed previously that in the budget package, budget workshops, there was a narrative provided for different departments. And so I'm hoping to facilitate this and bring this along as we go. And so I formatted up a little thing to follow, notable legislative or operational changes. So a department could provide some context if there's something drastically changing in their operations that impacts their budget. Operational metrics and trends. This is something that would be individual to each department. So for example, in the coroner's office, we might have put down here the trend of how many actual autopsies had occurred for the last 3 or 4 years, for the last 4 years. Anyway, so this is, and then notable changes in the budget. This is where they would note if there's been a significant increase or decrease in a budget line item that they'd want to highlight. So, and then if they had prioritization of things that they wanted to request be included in their budget, they would have a section to do that and explain.
Would this be cumulative over time? I mean, you can't keep decades, but I mean,
Yeah.
for like the last 3 years or something, so you kind of had a little history.
Right. Right.
Yeah, okay.
So anyway, so for my department, I'm trying to practice what I preach. So did a narrative for the Office of Administrative Services. And so there are changes that are planned for Budget Boss. I'd like to improve its efficiency. And if possible, find a way to improve the efficiency on position management. Because the direct labor is primarily most of everyone's budgets. And trying to come up with a way to gather that information a little bit easier. And then I'd like to coordinate all of that programming with the assistance of IT. So that's something operationally I want to make some changes, and it's going to have an impact on our workload and with the assistance of IT. So I wanted to highlight that. I don't have a lot of operational metrics yet gathered for my area. But the expenses have decreased over the last few years. I was looking at prior budgets. But that's a factor of some of the areas that were in OAS moved, like purchasing moved over to Public Works, facilities moved over to Public Works, things like that.
Wasn't the chief of staff budgeted through your office?
I think so.
It's like, so that,
Yeah.
you know, that definitely changed.
And then one of the notable changes for the budget that I'm presenting for my area, for OAS, for finance, is that the mailroom, operations had previously been in an enterprise fund. And so when I started looking at it, and analyzing it, the mailroom, the expenses is an office specialist position. The postage is reimbursed by the departments, but the person's position and benefits are not reimbursed. And so it was causing that account, and that account used to have print shop with it. It used to have mailroom, print shop,
Mhm.
and purchasing. Well, the mail services really is not a enterprise because they're charging exactly the cost of the mail service. But
We
we're-
used to literally print stuff here.
Right.
And then we made that decision to contract it out. So that
Right.
makes sense that you'd make this
Yeah.
change. 'Cause
So that revenue combined, all those revenues pretty much supported that purchasing function, not the people, but some of the functions and the mailroom. So it subsidized that. Since we no longer have print services, I really can't rely on that account to cover all of the expenses for the mailroom. So I'm recommending that the mailroom operation be moved completely over to finance as a general fund expense. And that unfortunately adds about 30, I think it's 30 or 30,000 to the general fund expenses to move that position, the benefits. The mailroom revenues that come in will offset the mail postage expenses. So that is primarily covered, but not the personnel. So that's one of the recommendations I'm making.
It was an expense we were having anyway. It's just in a different ledger now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it looks like if we continued the fund balance that was in that enterprise, it's almost gone right now. We would go negative. So
But all those departments that now contract out are saving money. So at least that's the theory.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for finance department, we do have a little bit of revenue, and mostly the revenue is the postage reimbursement. The personnel services, I'm not, like I said, I'm not 100% familiar with this, but this is something that revenue comes in. And so I went ahead and recommending budget continue for 100,000 for 24 and 25. And that's basically the majority of items: postage, and then this personnel services. And I need to do more research on that. So. And then for the expenditure request, like I said, I haven't included any COLAs in these labor numbers or expenditures or benefits. And then I'm pretty much keeping everything pretty much the same. The only noted difference is the fact that I'm now bringing in postage expense, but that's all under the category mailroom services on the second page. And that's like 120,000 a year. And then I'm also bringing in their expenses for their costs for IT and insurance.
I'm confused as to why there's a listing for public defense at the top of your revenue list.
I don't know why it listed it, because if you'll notice, there's no numbers.
There's no number to it, you know.
So it's just doing something odd there, picking up.
Okay.
There must be something like a couple of
At
pennies.
one time, the county operated a boat launch. And boat launch fees were collected by that office
Oh.
for some reason. And let's see. Yeah, yeah, that was when we operated the Willow Grove boat launch. Yeah, sort of random. It should have been with the parks, but didn't.
Basically, not much change in the budget for finance office over prior budget. But then it's a significant change over prior years because of the change in operations. Are there any questions on that one?
Well, the only thing I would kind of echo Commissioner Mortensen is you may, you're much more experienced at this than I am, so I always defer to you, but you may want to put 3% COLA in the numbers just to, I don't know, just kind of reflect, we know something's coming and do a best guess type thing.
But rather than label it, I think that's what they used to use the ending fund reserve amount. Because that's, you know, right now it's a reserve. We're not going to spend it, but we know it's going to be there. So just so that, you know, there's not a big hit once we get the final numbers in. But, you know, yeah, you can use your judgment on the best way to handle that.
Did we have a timed item? Did we
Yep, it's almost 11.
have a timed, oh, it was at 11? Okay. Okay. The next department that is under my area is Rural County Public Facilities. So on this one, I did want to, I have some specific items to notate. The sales tax is the predominant revenue for this fund. It appears to be on track to be about 2.6 million this year. That's the anticipated numbers that I'm anticipating for total, but we budgeted 1.8. So we are we have a reserve fund balance at the beginning of 2024 that I'm estimating to be 1.8 million. So that's nice. But we had the issue I have is that our budget capacity for I've slated the 2024 and 2025 revenue to be 1.8. I brought that 2.6 down to 1.8. I don't know what sales tax is going to do, but I'm trying to be conservative. And if that's true, then eventually we're going to have to look at, currently we awarded about $2 million in awards to other agencies, intergovernmental agencies. So I'm concerned that in the future for 2024 and 2025, we could continue to do that because we do have a fund balance. But after that, my concern is that we need to probably reduce that to about 1.5 million in order to stay within revenues and expenses to match.
So we have made some decisions that have allocated monies into the future, but not the full amount because we never knew
Right.
exactly how much of the
Right.
amount was going to be. So how much extra is available for economic development?
I can get those numbers for you, but for example, you have a couple of contracts that they do have wording in them that say if available, but you have some commitments for one that's $1 million that says if available.
Okay.
So I'm concerned for 2024, you've already committed quite a bit.
Right.
Yeah.
And I can probably bring you all of that information in its own workshop. So
You know, it might be helpful if we do that once we have December sales tax in, so you have the full years.
right.
So we
And
know
I
how
don't know
much off
when-
the mark we are.
Yeah, I don't know when you entertain a request for allocation of
Yeah.
2024.
Well, if memory serves me right, I think we did allocate ahead of time and understanding that we were anticipating a certain amount. We used to pretty regularly, I think, hold hearings for proposals in March. Is that right? Tracy usually ran, it was in February, okay. So after the year's sales tax was in, so you can kind of put that on your schedule for a review of that whole
Okay.
program.
Yeah, because right now you have several commitments on those contracts that are multi-year.
Mhm.
And one of them that I could remember is $1 million, but it did have that phrase that says if available.
Right.
Yeah. And I'll just echo again, I like this sheet you're starting and once you get even like next year it gets updated and then you have some actual numbers and you start projecting out again. I think that's helpful to say, oh, so you're always kind of looking ahead and seeing what may happen and then we get actuals and we can adjust those. And I like that kind of history. So I thank you for that sheet.
Now, the other good news on this one is there's a debt that has been coming out of this account and that retires at the end of 2024. So that's about, in the range of about $400,000 a year that was paid off of the sales tax.
Commissioner Mortensen, you had a question?
Yeah, I hope this is not too pestiferous. I would appreciate a front page that shows you the components, not necessarily anything about, like, for example, OAS stop and then you go through each of and just say listed, so that because these things have changed over the past and I don't know, I'm going to have to infer stuff from these 20 pages or so. And it'd be really nice to have it out.
Summary.
It almost amounts to a flow chart. I mean, an org chart
Okay.
at the highest level.
Well, the
And-
magic code is everything to the next tab is hers.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of
Right.
like.
Yeah, but
I
that's why you
didn't
say it's
realize
about
it was so
20
crazy.
page.
What is so complicated? And that's in addition to the budget for OAS. I mean,
Mhm.
these are the additional,
Yeah, these are the additional budgets that I manage.
and that doesn't even include the non-departmental.
Yeah, I didn't include
That's a
that
whole
one. I
nother-
didn't put that one in yet.
But, and that's where the general funds ending fund balance usually is, isn't it? Or do we still have that set aside?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
in a
what-
different fund,
Yeah.
a department. It has its own department.
Yeah, actually, a summary line would be good then, just
Yeah.
just like you did on the very first sheet.
Yeah, duly noted.
Good.
Learning. So basically, I didn't do any major changes on the revenues for rural county and no major changes on the expenditures either. Other than I did note that one of the debts is coming off, so I probably need to update the expenditures for 25. I kept the same number in there. Just trying to be conservative. But I do recommend that we have a workshop on all of the awards that have been made and which ones have continuing commitments and things like that. So you know exactly
Yeah,
what
so
you've committed.
you're saying we should meet again on this?
Yes.
Precisely. Thank you.
With more detail about the actual
Yeah.
awards. Okay, if that's all, federal forest, I didn't do anything on that. It's very minor. That's the one that the pass through.
Yeah.
Then the next one I did was the stadium convention.
Although your actuals, we've awarded those grants, right?
Well, on actuals, we brought in revenue of 15,000. We haven't dispersed any funds yet. We approved the disbursements.
That
But
was the one we split between the two
Two.
rural fire districts.
right.
So
Through the
one got
two,
7 and the other one got,
number 3 and number 6. One got 7 and one got 11,000. But they haven't dispersed yet because they have to submit actual expenditures.
May I?
That's why you're seeing nothing on the actuals.
but the approved budgets should probably be changed. since we-
Yes.
One of my foibles in life is that I'm very sensitive to other people's time. And when I see that, can we move this for another meeting
Mhm.
and proceed?
Yeah, we can do that.
Yep.
Okay, thank
Right?
you. Yeah.
Yes, no problem.
And I know we have,
County Road Department.
Mike, didn't you have executive sessions to start this thing? 3 of them for potential litigation, contract negotiations, and real estate.
Correct.
And
Let-
we wanted to do those first,
If
is
we
what I'm
could, yes.
understanding.
Yes.
Okay. And time wise on these, do you think?
10 and 5.
10, 10 and 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get that out of the way. We'll do that.
Thank you.
The board is extending the executive session for a period of 10 minutes until 11:28. The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:43. The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:54. The board is extending the executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 11:58.
The board is extending the executive session an additional 5 minutes until 12:03 p.m.
Okay, back from executive session, no decisions were made.
I think we're gonna, if it's okay with the board, we'll jump to roads and then I'll reschedule my time.
Okay. We did need a motion on.
Need to finish something from executive session, right?
Mhm.
Susan, do we have a motion to consider? Why don't you come straight up here? Yeah.
Yes, Susan Eugenius, County Engineer. We are requesting purchase of 3 permanent and 2 temporary easements associated with the Eric Creek culvert replacement project out on Abernathy Creek Road. We have 2, one at $1,200, the other at $1,250, and a third for $3,300. Requesting approval for the chairman to sign these as the property owners sign and turn in their paperwork.
So I'll so move. Authorization.
Okay, it's been moved as mentioned. Any questions from anybody?
The improvements are 100% funded? Or
Yes, the improvements are 100% funded.
grant funded.
Grant funded by the Protect Fund.
Okay. See no hands, I would call for a vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So vote aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, and we're gonna move into Public Works.
Yes, on the budget side, thank you, Chairman. Working with Kathy on the budget side, along with Sean Roy from our office. A majority of our items you can see on the agenda I sent to you guys or gave to you guys today, the budget update there. The vehicles, the 6-year road plan and the capital plan will all be done on October, I believe, 18th. The road levies on November 1st, and any fees that we'd be changing would be on November 21st. So our recommendation today is to just move, have those discussions on those dates, because the majority of our stuff's on those dates, including equipment, any new vehicles. If we do have any personnel items, I believe that's on a different date also. We're actually asking for no new personnel. There might be some new classifications, but for now, no new personnel. So that it's not a huge budget update today. It's mainly telling you that we have a lot of stuff coming down the line on those different dates.
Okay. That's acceptable. Unless somebody has objections to that, I think we're good.
We're afternoon. We've got a lot of work to do. Are we planning to spend the afternoon working on budget things?
No, I didn't reserve time with y'all for the afternoon. We have additional workshops tomorrow afternoon at 1:30. And for mine, I'll just come back and reschedule myself at another time.
Okay,
Yep.
That's okay.
So we'll finish up with Mike's.
Yeah, if you guys are okay, we could move on to other items. And if, I don't know if Kathy or you guys need to close as a true public hearing on the budget workshop, or do we just go into our session?
No, this isn't the formal public hearing for the
Okay,
budget.
right,
so
okay, all right.
Just workshops.
Sounds good. Thank you. So we have 1 building and planning item and 4 more public work items. So we'll go ahead and start with building and planning and have Tracy and Wayne up.
Mike? Why don't you sit there? That way they can come up with this at your beck and call.
Good morning, commissioners, or good afternoon. Tracy Jackson, Building and Planning, and with me is Wayne Nelson with Planning Manager. We just wanted to see if the board had any questions tomorrow. There's a closed record public hearing on 121 Carlin Loop Road. It's been through planning commission. It had, it's coming forward as a comp plan amendment, so comprehensive plan amendment. And
And briefly, it's about what?
you want to take that one? About the whole project? Sorry.
It's changing in approximately 16 acres into, is it rural? Yeah,
And those are 2-acre minimums.
yep,
Yes,
So potential new, eight new homes,
Correct.
potential.
correct.
And does, okay.
it has had,
Yeah,
I mean, it was pretty straightforward.
I listened
Planning
to it.
commission
Yeah, I
didn't have
listened
any
to it
hiccups
last
with it.
planning commission. It seemed pretty straightforward.
It's very straightforward. One property owner has all of it. Really no opposition.
Well, I think Chris has partners in that, but yeah, he's the one that runs it. Yeah.
And the road access is just fine for.
Yep.
The only concern I heard at the planning commission, because Carlin Loop, you cross the bridge and there's a pretty
Pretty sharp.
sharp curve right there and the driveway comes off that. And the only public testimony I really heard is people concerned about traffic around that corner.
So unless the board has anything, that's all we had today. We've got a lot. It's
And-
busy
and
activity
normally- and
downstairs.
Normally at our meetings, we ask for public input, but on a closed hearing, they have their chance, right?
Correct. Between
The law
SEPA
does- the law-
notifications
The
and
law only allows us to deal with
parties
staff
of record.
and the parties of, people who've already testified.
Correct.
Okay, no, okay.
Yep.
So we can't open it up to comment, but they have to be on the record. They have
Yes.
to already.
So there's no ex parte, extra, testimony brought in at that time.
Right.
No new testimony. Thank you.
Just for comment, these are one of the things that I don't know why they just didn't come to us. I mean, this could have been handled last month and then the planning commission would have just changed made a note of that whenever they get ready to build. These are one of these things that could have been, now you probably have the property owner in again, and I don't know if Nick comes in and explains all of it again. It just seems, and it spends a lot of your guys' time
And that's on
making
the,
a comment here.
we appreciate it. And we're
Yeah.
working with, you and Doug to try to get that figured out.
Yeah.
Yep. That's all we have. Thank you.
Thanks. On Public Works, once again, I've introduced myself, Mike Moss, Public Services Director. Sorry about that. Tomorrow on the consent, we have the Tenant Way electrical contract execution. That's with Hamer Electric. That was discussed, awarded with you guys on 8/22. I think Sean Rowe did that presentation. Just want to give you FYI, that is on the consent agenda tomorrow. Also on the
And
consent.
did I hear you say, that our involvement with Tenant Way landfill extends for another 24 years? That's when the closure is done?
Sean will have those details.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Yeah, so the Tenant Way landfill had a 30-year post-closure period once the closure was complete. If I recall correctly, it was closed officially in 2016 with the final cover. And so then we have 30 years to maintain that site at a minimum.
Although I think the county is currently in negotiation for a parcel to be sold, right?
Correct. Yes,
And those negotiations are still going on.
that's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our county engineer has two agreements on there tomorrow on real estate appraisals. Here she is.
Yes, these are the two additional appraisals that we just got 5 on a couple weeks ago. So these are 2 additional appraisal contracts for independent appraisers for public works
Oh,
projects.
to do the work, not reports from them.
No, not reports from them. This is for them to do the work.
So that'll
appraisals.
be what, a group of 7, 6?
So we'll have 7 appraisers and 3 acquisitions agents on board when we get the rest of them. This brings us up to 7. There are 3 more that we were waiting on all of the documentation from.
Oh.
The
Yeah.
process I ran through, we put a floor, instead of scoring and taking the top candidates, we put if you receive more than 70 points, you were offered a contract, and then we rotate through them. That's how we did this particular process. Makes a hearty on-call list for us.
And the Cowlitz County Assessor's Office is not one of the bidders.
Correct.
It's just,
They are not on the WashDOT approved
yeah.
list, so.
you may have that question again tomorrow.
You may have that question. We'll be ready for it. Yeah. Super.
So the next item is the Toutle wastewater treatment plant project. So you have before you the initial contract with Gibson Olson Engineering to provide engineering services for upgrades at the Toutle wastewater treatment plant. This is upgrades to the grit chamber, new different flow meters, upgrading the SCADA. This is ARPA funding. The $82,000 that is on the agenda for tomorrow is the contract to do the report, the engineering report that's required by ecology before you make any improvements. And we will be coming back once that report is underway for approval to get to approve design money for them so that the design scope is not over scoped. Is our goal of why we set 82, because at this point, we have an older report that has a whole laundry list of things that were needed. We don't believe all of those are. So that's the purpose of doing this report, and then coming back in 3 months and increasing the scope. It's not a scope increase. And when we advertised, it was, we're going to do the engineering report, and then we're going to do the actual design, but the contract and one selection process to do both phases. Because that was one of the big questions a few weeks ago when we came for the additional money for RH2. Oh, this is scope creep. This is scope creep. No, we set that contract up the same manner where we did the initial review, decided we are going to do this raw water line versus the system to, I always want to call it the wrong name, Toledo. So we didn't want a big scope that they could then creep when they're actually working on it.
Yeah.
The next item we have is the RCO, which is a Recreation and Conservation Office grant for the restrooms at the Trap House. We've talked about this a few times with you. We got a contract sent to us this last week. It's a 50-50 match with the state. Our share would be $77,250. They are actually a true restroom, running water restroom, not a pit toilet. That $77,250 for our side would help pay for the restroom, but also water and sewer to that site, septic system also. So I don't know if we've talked about it a lot, but we haven't really put it in the minutes. I don't believe to get final approval. If you guys are still okay getting $77,000 from the Parks Department to move forward with this project, work with Kathy probably to see how the funding would that work if it's since it's a general fund department to see how we're going to pay for that grant.
Just to be sure, we're talking about the same one. This was on the Cowlitz,
I'm sorry, I should have said this is at the Trap House at the gun range.
at the trap house at the gun
Yes,
range.
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So the phase 1 for the Trap House was doing the pads and the trap houses themselves and the machine. Phase 2 is actually putting restrooms out there. The closest restroom is about a quarter mile away over at the facility, at the main facility. So they went after the presentation in early spring to get restroom facilities closer to the Trap House, and they got approval of that, and now it's contract time.
So the total cost is nearly 150,000.
154,500, correct.
The gold-plated seats, right?
Yeah.
They don't look too fancy. I mean, there's two restrooms, no, not one, like a pit toilet usually has one entrance. This has a two-sided, one stall each, running water to be able to wash hands after shooting. So,
So it's split. It's a ladies.
correct.
Okay.
Yes. And they're pre-made. It's a prefab restroom that they bring in.
So the restroom that we either have had or are going to have installed out on Cowlitz River is a totally different design.
Correct.
That's one that has to be serviced. And
Serviced
pumped
every
out,
annually or, yeah.
something like that. And that's been installed, because that was about 40,000 or.
Not installed, but I don't have an exact price.
Oh,
Sorry.
It also wasn't cheap.
Yeah, I think the breakdown of the cost on the 155, if I recall, is about 100,000 for the toilet itself. So much for running lines and about 25, they're putting an estimate for the septic side of it.
Yeah. I know, they're not.
The septic side is only 25?
2025, but the estimate from Patrick Harbison, yes.
So that's a normal tank in a
Yeah,
leaching
correct.
field and
Yep. Exactly. Yep. So if you guys are okay with us moving forward, signing that contract, I should have that in the minutes. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I would sign it for half the price, but I'll probably sign it for this.
Yeah.
Thank you. And one other RCO note I got from Melissa Dunn actually this morning. Actually, this is a fully funded grant. She's applying for a RCO deferred maintenance grant that's due today. Extremely short turnaround time for the RCO. The project includes repairing the tennis and basketball courts at Riverside, doing the overlay, painting, restriping, new nets, and general cleaning. This grant requires no county match. Grants awards will be dedicated at the end of October and does not require presentations or reviews. So just FYI, she's turning that in today and hopefully do some new stuff, refurbish those at Riverside.
RCO is going to be flooded with those because every city council meeting I go to, they're all, we got this grant that we don't have to put anything into.
Yeah, it sounded like they had extra money when they just last week pointed
Yeah,
out to people
so
that
they're
had
gonna
extra
get
money
that
who
for
wanted to turn in
All
one.
over the state, I'm sure. They're
Yeah,
going to have
so-
a ton of them.
It'd be nice to be able to get one of that for Riverside with no match.
so
involved.
unfortunately, when they discover it's in District 3, they'll say no.
Yeah. What's not in District 3?
Well, you do have the biggest district.
Yeah.
Legitimate question.
Yeah, isn't that how it operates? It goes by seniority, gets the perks.
Well, no, it depends on your corporation connections, because the largest amount of money towards parks is in Zarn's district and it's Pacific Core. All those campgrounds. Can imagine how much that would cost us.
Well, I am the oldest person here.
Yeah. Just a comment on those bathrooms, when I would sit on, of course, it was IAC at the time. It wasn't RCO. It was in the 90s when I sit on that committee. They do those and they were always pits. They weren't anything out in, recreation areas that do them. And there was one guy at IAC. He hated the old wooden ones. He just hated them. And he always wanted concrete. Well, the concrete was more, but I said, Don, I finally said, Don, what's the deal? He says, you ever seen the bullet holes in those wooden ones?
It's all about bullets.
So that's what he was always worried about. He's gonna be in there and bullets are gonna start flying. He was older, so he's probably not around anymore, but that always cracked me up.
Right.
Any miscellaneous items from the BOCC today?
We have another executive session. I'm seeing qualifications of the candidate. It's just not,
Not ours.
okay,
No.
that was canceled? Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, sorry about running over today. I know it's 12:30. I apologize. Executive sessions went a little bit for longer than I anticipated.
That's okay. We've cut your
Yeah.
FTE requests down to 70.8.
Thank you.
We've made adjustments.
Thank you.
Any miscellaneous from my colleagues? No? Okay. We will adjourn. Thank you.